Our next section is Financials. First, let's close the template. To do so, we will select the lower X in the upper right-hand corner. That is the X in the gray area. The red X above that will close the entire program, while the gray X will close the template. Now, go back to the Template menu and select Tips Templates. We will now go to Financial category. Doing so will open 4 specific templates to the right. Tips 332 and 333 are designed as client worksheets. They are not for you. They are intended specifically for your client. These can be printed out, provided to your client, and once completed, returned to your office. The 334, or SNW, is the template you will be working with. Before we open this, I do want to refer to the location of another template that I'm going to talk about in a moment. Under the Financial category, there are 3 subcategories. The third subcategory is Backup Documentation, and that has associated with it one template simply called Backup Documentation. So now, let's return to the Financial category and open the 334. The first thing that you'll notice is that this template looks a lot like the previous template we worked on, and that all of the data saved from the previous template, including checkboxes, is contained here. We're now going to scroll through Section 1, which contains family data. Most of this data will come from the Master Information List, meaning it will self-populate as long as you put this information in the Master Information List previously. In the event of any missing data, you will need to type it in. Let's scroll to the beginning of page 2, titled Monthly Household Budget. One of the complexities of doing data entry for a statement of net worth is that we do data entry from 2 different locations. In the first half, or P&L portion of the statement of net worth, information like expenses and income will be entered directly onto this sheet by simply typing the information into the gray boxes provided. When we reach sections 4 and 5, or the balance sheet items, specifically assets, liabilities, and debts, we will move to the next section called Property Calc on our navigator bar. Let's begin by entering data for the expense side. First, we'll enter a rent number. Again, left-click in the gray area just to the right of the word rent. And for this example, let's enter 900. Select Tab or Enter. You'll notice that we entered the $sign and the decimal place. Then the total for that housing section will come up. Keep in mind, you can move between the gray areas with your Tab key, with your Enter key, or with your mouse. Let's now move to number 3, Real Estate Taxes, also in the housing section. Again, I will left-click within the gray area so that area becomes active. Now, because this field is often an annual number, we would normally use a calculator to divide by 12 and then type that number into our worksheet. However, we provide a tool called Scratchpad to do that for you. To access the Scratchpad, you must be active in a gray area that will accept it. Simply go to the 4th icon from the right in your toolbar. That looks like a little calculator. If you're active in a gray area, the bar across the top of that calculator will be green. Once you select this icon and open the Scratchpad, you'll find a variety of time frames. Let's say we're going to put 1200 for the annual basis. Hit Tab or Enter, and before we do a calculate and transfer, sending the corrected number to our statement of net worth, I want to talk about the big white box at the bottom of the screen. This box allows you to add text to further define an entry. An example could be, this entry is based on a 2008 tax bill. We expect a 5% increase, and therefore we incorporated it. For your reference, this information does not print on a statement of net worth. It does, however, remain on the template I spoke about earlier, called the Backup Documentation. The Backup Documentation can be utilized in any way that will help you. For instance, it could be used as file notes or as an appendix, though I strongly suggest you don't go back and forth. If it is indeed used as file notes, I would suggest that once your statement of net worth is complete, that you print both your statement of net worth and the backup document. Then ask your client to review both documents. This will ensure that the numbers on the statement of net worth are correct. It will also ensure that the source of the numbers in the backup documentation are also correct. Additionally, Both of those documents have client certifications. Don't forget to make your client sign them. Once you select Calculate and Transfer, you will see that the division is done and the total will appear for that housing section. Continuing through Section 1, you'll see at the bottom of page 5 that we roll up the total monthly and total annual expenses. At the top of page 6, we begin the Income section. The data entry in this section is exactly the same as that in the Expense section. At the top of page 8, we'll begin the Assets section. Pay attention to the grid line formatting. Whenever you see this type of formatting within any of our templates, this is a sign that you will need to go to Property Calc. You'll notice it not only in the Statement of Net Worth, but also in any of the equity templates. For example, you will see it in your Proposed Disposition and Findings of Fact forms, in the Separate Property Items list, in the Settlement Agreements, and some of the Family Court forms. Use the navigator bar to go to the Property Calc. Once you select that, you'll be offered two choices: Assets and Liabilities and Debts. We differentiate between the two in a simple way. Assets and liabilities include assets that stand alone and liabilities. Assets include such things as your grandmother's jewelry or an antique desk. Liabilities have an asset associated with them, such as a car loan or a mortgage on your house. Debts, on the other hand, are simply monies that are owed that are not tied to an asset. The most common example is credit card debt. Select Assets and Liabilities. Let's talk about the data entry for this section. Your view should include a large tab-delineated screen. To the right of the tabs, you'll notice that there are scroll bars. By using these, you can see that the screen will scroll all the way out to the tab labeled as M Uncategorized. After scrolling back to the left, find the tab labeled A2 Checking. Go to Institution and type in Bank 1. Select it and hit Tab or Enter. You'll now notice that this checking account has been added to our list box on the left side of the screen. To add a second or third checking account, or as many checking accounts as you need to add, simply click on the label over the list box that reads Add New Property Item. This will clear the screen and allow me to type something such as Institution Type Bank 2. Hit Tab or Enter, and you will see that there are now 2 items in the list box. You can add an unlimited number of accounts using this method. Let's talk a little about data entry. We have sections of data to enter. The first section begins with Institution and ends with Account Number. Simply enter the information needed: the institution and the account number. The next section includes Additional Description, Source of Funds, and Other Description. These 3 places will allow you to add free-form text, but be aware that these pieces of information will print on the Statement of Net Worth. To make notes that will not print on the Statement of Net Worth, use the Backup Notes function. These notes will print on the document called Backup Documentation. If you're using the backup documentation as file notes, you can also put negotiation strategies in there. The next section is called Lien Information. This section is largely self-explanatory, except for a part of it called Lien Type. This can be confusing because it is coded. What we're saying here is that if there were a lien against this particular checking account, it would be of the type HO, which stands for Other Liability. So if you actually put a lien in, that information will print on the Statement of Net Worth under the category of Other Liability. You can change this, however, by using the drop-down box. If you select AO, it will go to Category of Accounts Payable. If you select BO, it will go to Notes Payable, and so forth. The next section is called Equitable Distribution. We refer to this as the King Solomon section because this is where you're going to divvy up the equity position in this particular asset. You will essentially assign a dollar value to the husband and a dollar value to the wife. Keep in mind, this information has nothing to do with the Statement of Net Worth. Rather, it creates all of the data entry for any of the equity templates that we mentioned earlier, such as Proposed Disposition, property items list, and so on. Once you enter the data, you will notice a section called All Distribution all the way to the left under the list box. This is meant for your eyes only and should not be seen by anyone else. What this function does is add up the dollars assigned to both the husband and wife and show you a percentage for each. Underneath that is a Save button, which works just like the Save button or Control-S function you might already be familiar with from most home office products, such as Microsoft Word. We recommend that you save often to avoid accidentally losing any data. Another way to save is to use the Exit button to the right of your screen. For example, Transfer and Exit will save all the data and send it to the appropriate templates. So once you've selected that, you can look at your statement of net worth and see that the checking section has grown to include sections 1.1 and 1.2 and so forth. This concludes the discussion on the statement of net worth, so you can close this template by using the lower X in the upper right-hand corner and saving it.